Good Erev Shabbos Parshas Ki Sisa. This week's Sedra has within it the famous story of the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf. However, just before and just after the sin of the golden calf, the Torah recounts for us psukim having to do with the mitzvah of Shabbos. And it is in those psukim of Shabbos that I'd like to focus our attention for a moment. The Torah says, Ach es Shabbososai tishmoru, you shall observe my Shabbos. And Rashi, citing the Chazal, says that this word ach, whenever you find ach in the Torah, it's meant to be some type of exclusion or limitation. What's the exclusion here, or the limitation? Well, what's the broader context of what what our parshios in these weeks are talking about? And that is the building of the Mishkan. So the Medrash says, ach es Shabbosai tishmoru, that when you're building the Mishkan and you bump up against Shabbos on the seventh day of the week, put a pause on the building of the Mishkan. Ach es Shabbosai tishmoru, that even though you're building the Mishkan, pause, but for Shabbos, you have to observe the laws of Shabbos and stop the building of the Mishkan. The question is, why is that in fact true? Why do we put a pause on the building of the Mishkan in favor of Shabbos? One could make the argument that the Mishkan is of supreme importance to the body politic of the Jewish people, to the spiritual health, and to our religious convictions, and to our ability to cleave to the divine and be inspired to live the life that we're supposed to live. So this seems to be of paramount importance. Maybe, just maybe, that should override the laws of Shabbos. Indeed, when the Mishkan is functioning, some of the rituals in the Mishkan itself seem to override the laws of Shabbos. So if the rituals that are within the Mishkan might override the laws of Shabbos, why not the building of the Mishkan itself? To answer this, it is worth putting our attention on the following statement. Chazal note that the sin of the Egel is here in the context, generally, of the building of the Mishkan. So it's true that the sin of the Egel has immediately before it and immediately after reference to Shabbos, but more broadly, just before and just after, we also have the Mishkan. So Chazal say, based on this juxtaposition, Chazal say, Yavo Zahav HaMishkan v'yechaper al Zahav HaEgel. The gold of the Mishkan shall come and atone for the gold that the Bnei Yisrael donated and dedicated for idolatry, for the golden calf. Right? The gold that they use in the Mishkan atones for the gold that they dedicated and donated for the golden calf, for the Egel Hazav. What does that mean? I think what Chazal are saying is that the Egel and the Mishkan represent two very different value systems, two very different approaches to living life. The Egel is gold, pure and gold through and through. And that represents a pursuit of material wealth, of material pleasure, of physical delight. And indeed, the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the Egel, is not simply the making of this idolatrous golden calf, but the Torah records for us the partying that was going on around the golden calf. And the rabbis put some flesh on that bone and tell us that there were all types of depravity going on, including inappropriate sexual relations. So the golden calf represents a pursuit of material and physical pleasure of delight. Purely, it's gold through and through. But the Mishkan also has gold. However, in the Mishkan, the gold is one ingredient of many. It is one element of many elements that are used to fashion this place where we commune with Hashem. And if that's the case, then the Mishkan represents something different than the Egel. If the Egel is a pursuit of material pleasure, then the Mishkan represents a more balanced, a more wholesome, a more healthful and healthy way of life, where we do not deny our impulse for pleasure, where we do not where we do not attempt to push away our desire for material delights in life, but rather it's put in the context of many other things. And therefore, in the context, in a broader context, the pursuit of material wealth has its place. Not just that it has its place, it is appropriate, and it enables a full and vibrant life. So the Egel on one hand, that's pure materialism, and the Mishkan on the other, where the pursuit of material wealth and physical pleasure is part of a panoply, part of a broader context, a more balanced and healthy way of living. In that context, with that reality, that perspective, the Torah says, "Achesh absosai tishmaru." When it comes to the building of the Mishkan, should it come up against Shabbos, put a pause on it. Not because Shabbos is more important than the building of the Mishkan, but because Shabbos is a manifestation and a reflection of the very same idea of the Mishkan, namely a healthy, wholesome, balanced approach to living. Shabbos has everything in it. It has food, it has wine, it has davening, it has learning, it has communing with the divine. That's the Mishkan. And so if Shabbos comes up against the building of the Mishkan, we put a pause on the building of the Mishkan, because we have Shabbos, which is the Mishkan. The Egel and the Mishkan are two polar opposites, two very different ways of looking at life, two very different ways of approaching spirituality. Idolatrous way, which is all about a physical, material, a laser-like approach to material pursuits, and the Mishkan, which is a more balanced and wholesome approach. That's the Mishkan, and that's Shabbos. And so therefore, we put a pause on the Binyan HaMishkan, not because the Mishkan isn't important, but precisely because everything that the Mishkan represents is of paramount importance. I think the takeaway for us from Parshas Ki Sisa is to go about our lives not in denial of who we are as physical beings, not who we are as people and human beings that have real impulses and real desires for physical and material delight in life, but rather to embrace ourselves as human beings and understand that as we embrace our humanity, that is part of what it means to be a divine being, an individual who is pursuing a divine life. For Yahadus in Judaism, materialism and spirituality are not polar opposites. They should be lived in synthesis, combined in balance and wholeness. So as we enter this Shabbos, let us enjoy this Shabbos. Not just Kiddush, not just the wine, not just the food, but putting it all together, the wine, the food, the davening, the learning, the divine communion. Everything becomes spiritual and everything is physical. It is all one. Good Shabbos to us all.